welcome to the Somewhat Podcast Men. Today, we're going to be talking about some personal experiences with an event that happened in this country about 21 years ago. And we're going to be talking about 9/11, the attacks in New York specifically. There are a range of discussion points that we could be talking about here, like Fahrenheit 9/11. Was this an inside job? Was it not? The causes that led up to it, the responses from our government that put us in the situation that we're in now in the world, like just the actions of the federal government and how it led up to today's world. We can talk about conspiracy theory, we can talk about politics, we can talk about government response, how it happened, why it happened. But today we're going to focus on personal experiences, personal stories, and specifically my personal story, because I was actually in New York City at that time. So I discussed it with my co-hosts, and they're very supportive, and we're going to share it today. So, Rizke?
Yeah, so basically this is going to be, largely it's going to be Alex talking about his personal story. So me and Saint are going to probably take a back seat and interject here and there with, pearls of wisdom, if I dare say.
Yeah.
But before I say that, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. We appreciate your support on this journey of ours as we continue to provide you with quality content that hopefully gives you some benefit. Saint?
Well, welcome to the show, listeners. I think, as Riz just mentioned, that this podcast is literally going to be about Alex discussing his experiences during 9/11. And as much of an event 9/11 was, we all have to remember that loss of life, the way it happened, is never good. And then that event led to many other events which were also major in loss of life of many people across countries. So it was a ushering of an era that nobody really wanted, to happen. But
yeah,
anyways,
for sure.
So Alex, straight to you.
Yeah. So pre 9/11, I don't think anyone could have fathomed the event, what led to it, what it would cause, and how much death and destruction it would cause around the world. So something that we all have to think about, just like Saint said. So my personal experience with it was that I was living in New York City at the time. I was working in Midtown, and I had like a routine. So every morning I'd wake up around 8:30, get ready, hop on the train, and there's a point in the N train where it goes from Queensboro Plaza into the tunnel that leads into Manhattan. There's a small window where the train is being elevated, and it keeps going higher and higher, and it winds up. Guys, I'm sorry. Hold on. There's an elevated portion of the train that for a brief amount of time you can see the skyline of New York City on the east side. And you are privileged to see all of the bridges, the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, and the Twin Towers that were there. And it on a clear day, a sunny, clear day, the sun, is facing east, so it's facing you when you're crossing from Queens into Manhattan, and it kind of highlights the skyline of New York City. And New Yorkers kind of have like a saying where, you can hate the city because it's yours, right? And no matter how much I always wanted to leave the city, or I'm sick of living here, this or that, whenever I used to see the skyline of the city and the sun hit the skyline, it gives you like an immense sense of pride of being, a New Yorker and being from New York. Like, this is mine. This is where I'm from. So I remember that day. It was a warm day, and I remember the sun hitting the buildings like that. And I remember having like a sense of pride, like, yo, this is what's up. And on goes the day. I get to the office. I'm sitting in the office and just doing my work, and then the first news report comes up, right? A plane hit the one of the towers. And when you're a student in New York City, they teach you a little bit about the history of the city. And part of the things that you learn is that there was a plane that hit the Empire State Building. And it was an accident. Some guy got lost and hit the Empire State Building. All the kids in New York City learn about this, right? So we automatically all thought that that's what happened. And we couldn't wrap our head around what exactly happened. I remember in the office, everybody was saying like, oh, what an idiot. Like, the guy didn't know where he was going. Like, he didn't see the building. Like, it was like a car accident on the side of the road. And then, however longer later, it was like, oh, the second tower got hit. So at that point, we all knew something was going on. Some type of tragic, life-altering event was happening. We made our way downstairs to go look, and when you're standing on Madison Avenue, you can look straight down to the towers and see, so we saw smoke, and just, I wouldn't say we saw fire, but we definitely saw smoke coming from the two towers, and it looked like something out of a movie. Like, that's the only way I can explain it. And I remember going back upstairs, having more conversations, like, what happened, like, who did this, was it an accident, was it not? Like, we really didn't know. Everybody was confused.
Your heart must have been racing by this point. You remember that?
Actually, no, man.
You remember your heart being racing?
Me and everybody around us were like confused.
Really? So you felt more confused, like a sense of dread, confusion?
No. But see, the thing is, this is the thing. We're looking, like, you're looking at it from a perspective of we already know what happened. At that time, it was like, there's no way to explain something like this, right? Because you have no reference.
Right.
So I had no fear, no dread, it was more of like a state of like confusion.
Confusion, okay.
I'll
tell you, I was sleeping and my dad wakes me up. We actually had about 5 people working on our pool fence at that time. And, Floridians, all white folk. And my dad woke me up. It was on the telly. And when I came in the living room, they were all in there, with the rest of us. And they were just sitting on the carpet looking. And I kind of like focus and it showed one of the towers with the smoke coming out of it. And, slowly I'm now trying to grasp what's happening. And it was a scene, man. It was a scene. And right when we were looking at that, the second plane came and hit. And I was, and I just literally went, is that the same one, or is this something else just happened? And they all gasped. It was surreal, man. It was surreal.
You were in a situation where you couldn't believe what you were like. There's no explaining what you were seeing. Now we can give words to it, but when a situation like that is happening, it's wordless. It has no price to it, no value. Anyways, we go upstairs, and then in a little bit, I come downstairs, and one of the towers was gone. So I go from this majestic scene in the morning that lifts your spirits and gives you pride in who you are and where you're from, to them being hit, and then to it being one of them being gone. And I'm not even seeing this. It's like in flashes. The buildings are there. One gets hit, I go upstairs. The other one gets hit, I go downstairs. I go upstairs. The one's gone, I go back upstairs, and I come back downstairs, and the second one's gone.
How far away were you from the building?
We were in Midtown, like in the 30s. So let's say 60 blocks. 60, 70 blocks away. Yeah.
Okay.
You got to remember that the city's on a grid system.
Yeah.
So you can see what's
right,
beyond you, and on top of that, the buildings are massive. It's a skyline,
So I'm gonna add one more thing to my experience for that day.
Mm-hmm.
It was a terrible experience starting out for me, and I'm not gonna go into this too much. Just to say, at this part, when I saw the buildings, the way they came down, at that point, I was more angry than surprised at the whole thing, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah. So we're all upstairs in the office, and the boss is like, hey, everybody go home. So the trains were shut down, the buses were shut down, no traffic in the city, because nobody really knew what was going on. Like, we had an idea that we're under attack, and the news started to report at that time that it was Al Qaeda and Osama and those lot. And for a Arab Muslim kid, and the other Muslim people that were working in the office with me, like, it was like we're not, like, this is not something that we do, and it's not something that we can do. So it was confusing on two sides. So anyways, I go downstairs and I decide, okay, I'm gonna go to the school. I'm gonna go to my college and see who's there in the school. And so I go to the college, and the college is completely empty. And I decided to make my way up into the MSA, the Muslim Student Association. So I walk into the Muslim Student Association. No one's there. It's a ghost town. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess nobody's here, so I'm gonna go home, But before I leave, there's this girl there who was my neighbor. She lived on a block away from me, and she used to wear a full covering, the head to toe covering, including the face veil. And she was like, Alex, can you walk me home? Like, I don't want to go by myself. Like, I feel something's gonna happen to me if I go by myself. And then it clicked. I was like, oh yeah, well, she's wearing hijab, she's wearing niqab, she's fully wearing the full dress, the jilbab, and now people are gonna start connecting, and I can walk, I'm part Hispanic anyways, so I can walk freely. Nobody's ever gonna, but these women who are covered, they're the ones who are going to get the brunt of the kickback. So she said, I'm going to take off my niqab, and I'm going to take off my hijab, and just walk me home. And I said, well, definitely take off the niqab, but leave your hijab on. And if it gets too hot, then we'll find a place for you to take it off, and we'll make our way back. So we had to walk home. And this is like a 15-mile, 20-mile walk, right? It's not something that's easy. So we start heading out, and the second I got downstairs, some guy was already cursing at her, right? You fucking people, whatever. After he said that, 3 or 4 other people came up behind us, and I thought, khalas, is going down. Those people scared away that guy. and they said, "You're gonna walk with us. The both of you are gonna walk with us until we get to where we're going. You're gonna keep walking. And if don't worry, if anybody messes with you, we're gonna take care of you." And these aren't like kids. These aren't like people from the subcontinent. These are like New Yorkers, Irish, Italian, German, wherever they were from, you know. And I remember that like feeling even till now for the rest of my life, you know, like even at that moment, even when like, and at that point shit wasn't the worst that it could be. Like it got worse for Muslims after the invasion of Iraq, you know. But even at that point where there was an attack on the country and everybody knew it was Osama and Al Qaeda, whatever, even at that point there were people who were trying to protect, you know, the Muslims in the country. And this is why at that point, like, I told myself, like, you know, when I used to go to my dad's country in the Middle East, I used to say, I feel like, you know, the people in the country are my people, but this is not my home. And I feel that in the United States is my home. And that's why I feel so strongly about that. Because at that time, at that critical moment, instead of people turning into a mob, nah, we're not going to sit down, we're going to stand up. And that's what they did. They stood up. We made our way back home, and the entire time, random strangers would come up to us. Are you okay? Is everything all right? Did anybody mess with you? Do you want us to walk you home? The whole time. So we made our way back home, and like in my neighborhood, you know, like you got to pass through some rough areas where they have like construction workers and like mechanics and stuff like that. Those were the people that gave us grief, you know. And mechanics, those are the guys that gave us grief, you know. They didn't really say anything. They were like staring at us, and I stared back at them. And then I kind of got the vibe that, oh, these motherfuckers are serious. So I told the girl to start running, you know. And that was the disappointing part, because I felt like it was like, if anybody's seen that movie, oh my God, I can't remember the name of that movie. It's like The Odyssey, but through gangs in New York. The Warriors. So I recommend to everybody to watch this movie. It's called The Warriors. It's about a gang that's stuck in Coney Island, and their turf is in the Bronx, and they're going through the whole city. So it almost felt like that, you know, like I'm going through all these dangerous areas. Finally, I'm home. I have a sense of security. I'm in my hood, and then these motherfuckers is trying to stress me, you know. But nothing came of it. I got home. The girl got home safely. And the next few days after that, there were a few, like nobody talks about this. Nobody really knows, you know. But like there was a few, like, you know, fist fights and kind of settling of beefs, so to speak, you know, like.
Wait, you personally got into fist fights?
So people in the hood, you know, like in your neighborhood, like the way New York City is that in certain areas there's a predominant ethnic group, okay? Right. But they're not the only ethnic group. Like in cities, like in DC, like black people live with black people and that's it. Like white people live with white people, that's it. The Asians live with Asians and that's it. In New York City is different. You might have a neighborhood that has a predominant ethnic tone to it, but there's like 5, 6, 7, 8 different nationalities that are living in that same neighborhood within in numbers. Okay. And like especially Queens. Queens is a mess. One half of a block is Chinese, the other half is Pakistani, you know, like, and then it's like one building is Bengali, and then on the 4th, 5th, and 6th floor is a bunch of Africans, you know, so like it's very, very mixed.
Man, so, every time, like, you know, Queens is mentioned, like my mind goes to the Eddie Murphy movie Coming to America.
Yeah, they gave us a bad rap, bro.
that was a great movie, though. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
There was some, you know, beef that needed to be squashed, because like after that, there was some, I think, like some of the Hispanic residents. I mean, I'm gonna say it how it is, right? Like some of the Hispanic residents in the neighborhoods started to kind of like, try to attack women with hijabs and throw shit at them and curse at them and
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah, when they were
Talk
like
about
going home
wow.
in their neighborhoods and stuff like that. And then, but we put an end to that real quick. That was ended very quickly, like through, cause like the Muslim community in Queens has been there since the 70s or the 80s. So they're like OGs that have been there that have fought those street battles back in the days. So my age group didn't have to do as much work, like, and for people who don't really understand, like when you're a new ethnic group moving into a city, there's going to be conflict. You're going to have conflict with the other groups of immigrants that were there before you. They're moving out, you're coming up, there's going to be a conflict, and me and my friends were involved in some of that, in high school, in some of those neighborhood conflicts, so to speak, So through our connections that we built, through the OGs that did the work, in the early 90s, and through the friends that we made in the neighborhood and stuff like that, most of that was deaded within the first week. And then I gotta give credit where credit's due. The NYPD did an amazing job. Like cops at every masjid, announcements saying that Muslims aren't responsible for this stuff. And I also got to give credit where credit due. That speech that George W. gave.
I was just gonna say the W. Bush actually. I think that was one of the moments I have deep respect for the guy.
Yeah, he stood up and, hey, it could have been easily done where he says we're rounding up all these people and like if you find one in your neighborhood, send him to the camp or whatever. It could have been at that point. If we were sitting here 21 years from now talking about how we just got out of the internment camps, that could have easily happened, but that's not what happened, and it didn't happen for several reasons. Because the people would have never stood for it, and because W said like, these people are our countrymen. Like at the end of the day, they're our countrymen. So, the next few days was dealing with this unsettled beef and just trying to figure out what was happening. Like people still went to the masjid. And I feel like at that point, like Muslims lost like a wonderful opportunity that I think just now we're starting to like reap the benefits from. Everybody was asking what's Islam, what's Islam, what's Islam, and like yes, like a lot of people converted to Islam after that because they were questioning what's Islam and they did research and stuff like that. But I think the Muslim American community specifically lost an opportunity. There were two reactions to the attack on 9/11 from the American Muslim community. The first one was what Hamza Yusuf was doing. The people that did this do not reflect our religion. They are not Muslim from the point of what they did. And we reject this. And the second, like we're a religion of peace, right? The second response to what happened was, well, look at all the stuff the United States is doing in the world. Like the chickens are coming home to roost, so to speak, right? And that was a response in the Muslim community as well. Like look at all the bloodshed and harm that you guys, the United States is doing throughout the world, and now you're getting a taste of this and you're upset. Like what did you expect? Like evil breeds evil. And I think that both of those responses are incorrect. We lost a grand opportunity at that point. And hindsight's 2020. Our best response would have been what our response is now to these type of things. When a terrorist attack happens and somebody comes and asks you, or they have like a Muslim on TV, well, tell us about these terrorists. Well, Well, why the fuck are you asking me for? I'm not a terrorist. I'm an American. Yeah, I'm Muslim, but I have nothing to do with these people, so why are you asking me for? I'm not their spokesperson. I'm not going to speak for them. And I'm definitely not going to apologize because I didn't do anything.
I think I had similar responses. Actually, I think on the flip side of the coin, I was like, well, why were you hanging black slaves, on the noose?
Yeah. And like popular African American sentiment in music and art was a reflection of that argument. Look at all the evil you've done throughout the world. So
there's people who do evil and there's people who do good. We need to get that as a true fact.
Right.
So, like trying to stereotype people, it's just not right. It is the stupidest thing we can ever do.
So like this was a point that the American Muslim missed. Like what happened to my city, happened to my people, it happened to my country, it happened to my home. So why would you say like, oh, look what you did? Because it's not what I'm you.
Well, yeah, but but Alex, this is the otherization that happens with the majority. I mean, this is not. This is something that's age old.
Yeah,
but I'd say that like we missed an opportunity because like, and hindsight's 2020. Hindsight's 2020. I get it. Like.
I mean, think about it. Like Catholics were ostracized for many years.
No.
Right?
I'm not criticizing. Like you're right. The otherization.
I mean, the otherization is an age-old concept.
Yes,
this happens.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Like what I'm highlighting is that, the correct response to otherization is the rejection of otherization. Like so, if you ever like if a terrorist attack happened like the last time it happened, and God forbid it happens again. There's really no like, oh, those people, like those Muslims. That's not what you get now. There's a nuance to it. The response from Muslim Americans is the correct response. Like, I'm not a spokesman for these people. Like, what happened was wrong and evil, and that's it.
Well,
you also got to realize one thing more, Alex. In that time, right, initially, even within the first 3 years, the Muslims in the United States had never experienced anything like that. And they themselves, I mean, it took them time to react to it themselves, like, to capture, put sanity into all of this and how to respond to it because things were happening so fast.
Well, but the country hadn't experienced.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
the country hadn't experienced anything like that since Pearl Harbor.
But
so
I think if we look at it now, whatever shaped and formed actually turned out for the better for everybody's understanding over the period of time.
100%. And I will say this, right? The people in New York City that I found to be the most calm, I guess, about the situation, the most understanding of what was happening, were the people that fought in World War II, and they were still alive at that time. So there were people in the city who fought in World War II, neighbors, people in the neighborhood, people in the building, people that somebody's cousin, somebody's uncle, whatever, somebody like, well, obviously somebody's grandfather or grandmother. Those were the people that had the most amount of nuance.
And they're older and wiser,
and they went through the experience of a life-changing event, of the country being attacked.
Well, that's where the wisdom comes from.
Yeah, exactly.
So how about so we're on closing thoughts now?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, the final thing that happened at that point is that afterwards I was working down there in that area, and I got lost. I was in a car with somebody else, and he was telling me, make a right, make a left, make a right, make a left, make a right, make a left. And like, I was doing that, and then we found our way in front of the wreckage. You know, this was like a month after. And man, like, we were talking the whole way and joking or whatever, and like once we made that right and we turned and the car was right in front of the wreckage of the Twin Towers, like you could have heard a mouse's heart beating in that car, bro. Like, not a breath, not a talk, not a sigh, not a nothing. And I remember the guy saying, man, damn, that smells horrible. Like man, all those rats, like all those dead rats.
Yeah.
And then, you know, those were, we realized at the same time that those weren't rats that we were smelling. Yeah, man, you know. So there's plenty of time to talk about all the things around that incident, but like today, you know, just wanted to highlight that story because, like, you know, at the end of the day, people's mom died, people's fathers died, brothers died, sisters died, cousins, you know, like these are like real people. And no matter what kind of argument you hear from terrorists, Al-Qaeda, that lot, you know, like what did somebody's mother have to do with what they're talking about? Nothing. You know, nothing. There's no justification in evil. Has no justification. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. It's corny, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing that story. I guess my final thoughts are that I think the main takeaway that goes through my mind when I heard your story is that yes, there is a lot of evil and bad in the world, no doubt. Of course, we all know that. But we tend to like forget how much good there is as well, and we don't highlight the good. And I'm glad that, you know, you told this story and you highlighted the good. You know, I think that's very important. I think that's going to be my final thought and focus, is that let's not forget how much good there is out there as well. Saint?
This is an old saying, and it is to know somebody. If you want to know somebody how they are, you travel with them, you deal with them, all right? And you host them, or they host you. So these are like kind of the three things that will tell you the caliber of a person you're dealing with. And I think tragedy or an event as such drives the true nature of people, and it portrays in front of you. And you know, in that moment you really see who people really are. There's nothing more raw that brings out reflections of true humanity out of people, and you saw it with your own eyes in your own experience. And I'm glad, and I'm very glad that there are people who can hold their own integrity and humanity in such position when they're dealing with other human beings, rather than just reacting impulsively to, you know, what's happening. So I'm glad you shared that experience and illuminated, you know, those things. They're very deep, you know, very deep things. And so thank you for that.
You know, my final thoughts is like when an individual is confronted with wickedness, you know, there are two paths that they can take. They can fold, or they can stand up. And standing up means and includes loving your fellow human. You know, if your instincts are to care for the people around you, care for your neighbor, care for strangers, look out for your city and your countrymen. Like, this is the epitome, the highest level of human nature, and we should all strive to that. We ain't got no sponsors today, fellas, so we're just gonna cut it short. All right, everybody, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. All right.
So go ahead, say your thing, Mariz.
Yes, and yeah, how could the episode end without me saying, please, for the sake of God or whatever you believe in, Bhagwan, Brahman, Allah, like us on Facebook, spread the love of the videos, share it with your friends and colleagues, and thank you for joining us on this journey together.
Or even if you
All
believe
right.
in capitalism, for the sake of capitalism.
Also, I don't want to discriminate against the people who worship flying spaghetti monster. I forgot to shout out to them.
Flying spaghetti monster, holla at your boys then.
Holla! All right.
All right, thank you.